This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the 48th session of the European Conference of Solidarity with the Sahrawi People has continued in Lisbon, Portugal, with the objective of reinforcing the international support with the Sahrawi issue. The 11th high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa is to be given the kick-off tomorrow, Sunday, in the city of Oran here in Algeria. The Palestinian spokesman Nabila Bourdaina has issued a strong warning regarding the silence of the U.S. administration in the face of Israel's ongoing genocide. You're listening to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Slimani. The 48th session of the European Conference of Solidarity with the Sahrawi People has continued in Lisbon, Portugal, with the objective of reinforcing the international support with the Sahrawi issue. On the second day of the meeting, several workshops were held in order to promote the Sahrawi state and to defend the rights and resources of the Sahrawi people and to see to it that Morocco's occupation ends. In this respect, the head of the European Coordination for the Support and Solidarity with the Sahrawi People, Pierre Galland, urged the all organizations supporting the Sahrawi issue to act to put a halt to the plundering of Western Sahara's resources. He stressed that other actions would be taken soon in order to ensure the protection of the Sahrawi people's natural resources and the respect of legal decision, notably the ruling issued by the European Court of Justice.
Algeria has played a remarkable role at the United Nations Security Council in defending the rights of the Palestinian people and some of the Sahrawi people. So I'm pleased to know that there are some states, and today, like South Africa, who resorted to the International Court of Justice, like Algeria, who within the United Nations Security Council defend the basic rights of those occupied and exploited people. So yes, Algeria did her job.
Earlier, in a statement to the press, the head of the European Coordination for the Support and Solidarity with the Sahrawi People praised the efforts made by some countries, notably South Africa and Algeria, who spared no effort at the international institutions to secure an end to occupation in both Western Sahara and occupied Palestine.
And we'll again go to the European Parliament on December 10th to assess whether the ruling issued by the European Court of Justice is respected by the European institutions themselves, because today the partnership accords concluded with Morocco must be reconsidered. They can no longer include the territories of Western Sahara. They can no longer take advantage of the resources of Western Sahara. There are new elements that will be highlighted so that all the Sahrawi people's rights be respected.
During the 2 days of conferences, government representatives and delegates from parliaments, solidarity associations and social movements denounced human rights violations in the occupied territories and called for the respect of UN resolutions. About 50 Portuguese figures, including diplomats, academics, artists and public figures, have signed a declaration of support with the right of the Western Sahara's right to self-determination. The statement that supports the organization of a self-determination referendum under UN auspices recalled the historic process that has been reiterated since the 70s, all international legal decisions that affirms that Western Sahara is a territory separated from Morocco. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has said in a message read on his behalf by the Deputy Chairman of the Council, Mr. Mohamed Rida Saleh, that he was optimistic about the new victories achieved by the efforts of free women and men throughout the world, including the European coordination of committees of solidarity with the Sahrawi people, and notably the ruling of the Court of Justice of the European Union invalidating the agreements concluded between the European Union and the occupying state.
The ruling of the European Court of Justice is no international decision about the fairness of the Western Sahara issue and an explicit recognition that the Moroccan presence in the region is a colonization that requires the protection of the occupied people from the violations. Law enforcement is an effective tool in the struggle against colonialism, terrorism, and similar crimes.
In this connection, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Koujil, recalled that thanks to its mandate as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, Algeria is pursuing its efforts to achieve this objective under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, who has given priority to African issues, notably decolonization, during Algeria's term of office. He also spoke of the suffering endured by the Palestinian people who have been subjected to genocide by the Zionist occupation, reiterating Algeria's solidarity with the resilient people and its unconditional support for their legitimate rights to resistance and independence. The 11th high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa is to be given the kickoff tomorrow, Sunday, in the city of Oran. In holding this event, Algeria is reaffirming its commitment to making Africa's voice heard at the international scene, while working to strengthen African solidarity in order to face common challenges, embodying the Pan-African vision of the Founding Fathers with a view to reaching unity and prosperity in the continent. The details on tomorrow's summit with our reporter in the city of Oran, Asya Bikaf.
The city of Oran will host, as of tomorrow, the 11th session of the high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa, which has established itself as a key platform for discussion and reflection on peace and security issues on the African continent. Created in 2013 at Algeria's initiative, the seminar established itself as the main forum for coordination between the three African members of the Security Council, A3, and the members of the Peace Security Council of the African Union, with the aim of defending common positions and to strengthen united and influential African diplomacy. The session will be attended by members of the AU's Peace and Security Council, African members of the Security Council, the incoming and outgoing members of the Council, in addition to the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, representing Latin America and the Caribbean at the Security Council within the A3+1 mechanism, in addition to the AU Commission, the UN, and the friends and partners of the seminar. Algeria is playing a dual role at this session in its capacity as host country and initiator of this seminar and as a member of the African Group A3 at the Security Council for the period 2024-2025. Asya Bakar to Radio Algeria International, Oran.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. This is the English service. Algeria is the guest of honor as a representative of the African continent at the 28th edition of the International Crafts Fair, starting today in Milan, Italy, with the participation of more than 100 countries. More with Majid Mila in this report.
The Minister of Tourism, Mrs. Houria Meddahi, starts today an official working visit to the city of Milan, from where she is to supervise Algerians' participation in the fair. This major international event, which will last until the 8th of December, will help to strengthen the Algerian-Italian cooperation in the field of tourism and handicrafts, which is experiencing a sustained rhythm in line with the strong will of both countries to develop fruitful and beneficial cooperation at all levels. The event also reflects the deep-rooted cultural rapprochement between the two peoples based on the principle of mutual understanding and respect. For Algeria, this international fair is a bridge of communication between different peoples and will provide an opportunity to showcase its cultural heritage through the skills and creations of the Algerian craftsmen and artists. The participation of about 80 Algerian craftsmen is a great opportunity for visitors to the Algerian stand to find out about the beauty and splendor of products, artistic works and creations of the Algerian participants, conveying the authenticity and identity of the cultural, artistic and civilizational heritage of Algeria.
Several Palestinians, including children and women, have been killed and injured today in the ongoing occupation aggression on the Gaza Strip, which is entering its 421st day. At least 15 Palestinian civilians were killed and others were injured in a series of Israeli airstrikes south of Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip in Gaza City in the north of the enclave. Medical sources reported that Israeli warplanes targeted a vehicle and a gathering of citizens south of Khan Yunis, killing 8 civilians. Meanwhile, 7 Palestinian citizens were killed and others were injured in an Israeli raid that targeted a house in the Shujaiya neighborhood east of Gaza City. Earlier today, 5 Palestinians were killed, including 3 employees of the World Central Kitchen organization, when the Israeli occupation bombed a civilian vehicle on Salah ad-Din Road, northeast of Khan Yunis, in the southern Gaza Strip. The spokesman for the President Mahmoud Abbas, Mr. Nabil Abu Rodeina, has issued a strong warning regarding the silence of the U.S. administration in the face of Israel's ongoing genocide and the deliberate campaign of starvation and displacement of Palestinians in northern Gaza. The details with Majid Mila.
Abu Rodeina said that the United States' silence and support have emboldened Israel to continue these crimes, which are punishable under international law, adding that is defying international law and the resolutions of the international community, and it continues to refuse them to implement the Security Council's decisions, including Resolution 2735 and the United Nations General Assembly's resolution. He called on the United States administration to take serious and effective steps to pressure Israel into adhering to international law, ending its comprehensive war on the Palestinian people and ceasing its aggressive actions in Gaza. He also stressed that the region can no longer bear these Israeli policies of aggression, which only led to more instability and tension. Abu Rodeina also called for urgent international action to address the serious consequences of Israel's ongoing assault on Palestinians. He urged the United Nations Security Council to implement its resolutions on the Palestinian issue, which call for an immediate ceasefire, the delivery of humanitarian aid to all of Gaza, Israel's full withdrawal from the territory, and enabling the state of Palestine to assume full responsibility over Gaza.
Now in Iceland, the people are electing a new parliament after disagreements over immigration, energy policy and the economy forced the prime minister to pull the plug on his coalition government and call early elections. This is Ireland's 6th general election since the 2008 financial crisis devastated the economy of the North Atlantic Iceland nation and ushered in a new era of political instability. In Nigeria, at least 27 people died when a boat capsized on the Niger River in the central part of the country. The boat was carrying about 200 passengers from the state of Kogi to a food market in the neighboring state of Niger when it capsized, with more than half reportedly missing. Rescuers had managed to pull 27 bodies from the river, while local divers were still searching for the missing passengers. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. This is the English service.
Algeria, like the rest of the world, is commemorating tomorrow, December, the first World AIDS Day 2024 under the theme Take the Right Path, My Health, My Right. In this connection, the Algerian Ministry of Health said that thanks to the national response to HIV/AIDS, our country has made undeniable progress and remains a low-activity epidemic with a 0.1% rate of infection. It went on to reaffirm Algerians' commitment to doing everything possible to limit the spread of this disease as part of the United Nations program designed to eradicate AIDS by 2030. The Minister of Health, Abdelhak Seihi, has said the commitment is reflected through the action and mobilization of the government and all stakeholders, in particular civil society, to ensure universal and free access to all healthcare services, including screening and treatment. This year, several organizations called on global leaders and citizens to champion the right to health by addressing the inequalities that hinder progress in ending AIDS. In New York, United Nations AIDS Deputy Executive Director Engeli Akrakar told reporters during a press conference held on the occasion of the launch of the 2024 World AIDS Day report that more than 30 million people living with HIV are alive today and thriving because they are on life-saving treatment.
We always take a moment to remember the over 42 million lives that have been lost to AIDS. We also take a moment to recommit to our shared goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. Today, we are launching our report, Take the Rights Path to End AIDS, which brings a message of hope, unrelenting hope, but also a call of urgent action. Ending AIDS is not only about health, it's also about our commitment to human rights that underpins the very access people have to health. At its core, the fight against AIDS is about people, it's about dignity, it's about equality, and it's about justice for all. We can end AIDS if the rights path for people living with and affected by HIV and AIDS are protected. Together, because of the power of partnership and shared global solidarity, we've made extraordinary progress in the global HIV response. More than 30 million people living with HIV are alive today and thriving because they are on life-saving treatment. AIDS deaths have plummeted by 70% since their peak. This is really extraordinary progress over the past few decades.
The United Nations official added that the newly launched report highlights both achievements and remaining gaps in addressing the global epidemic, stressing disproportionate impact on vulnerable populations, including teenage girls and young women.
While there is significant progress, this does not mean that there is success. Major gaps in people served, especially with HIV prevention and protecting rights, remains a challenge. And so we must make sure that we continue to succeed on the path of ending AIDS as a public health threat by addressing the rights that people face. Key and vulnerable populations continue to be at risk. Adolescent girls and young women, key populations, children, for example. These are the populations that are hardest to reach and hardest to find. Today, 1.3 million people around the world acquire HIV and AIDS. This is 3 times higher than the 2025 target that the globe is set to achieve. That's 4,000 new HIV infections among adolescent girls and young women just in a week. In 28 countries, the number of new HIV infections is on the rise. And of the nearly 40 million people living with HIV, 9.3 million people are still in need of treatment. And last year, 630,000 people died of AIDS-related deaths. This is 1 every single minute. So about 45 deaths occurred in just the last 45 minutes we've been together. To bring down the trajectory of the pandemic, it's imperative that life-saving HIV prevention and treatment services can be reached without fear by all who need them.
Akrakar said that the substantial progress that has been made in the HIV response is directly linked to progress in protecting human rights. She also called on world leaders to protect the rights of the people living and infected HIV to save millions of lives.
Leaders must do 3 things. First, remove discriminatory laws that violate rights of people living with and affected by HIV. Second, resource community-led responses to protect rights so HIV services can be accessed. And third, root the HIV response in human rights approaches to enable access to HIV services. The AIDS response is at a crossroads. We can end AIDS if we take the rights path and walk this together. And finally, by upholding human rights and tackling discrimination, we can end AIDS and save millions of lives and ensure a healthier future for all. Human rights is, in fact, a barrier to prevention and treatment services. The very reason that we still have 1.3 million new infections every single year, that's stalled. We haven't progressed in that way, is because we're not addressing the human rights barriers that that enable access to prevention and treatment services. What we have to do is really make sure that countries are focusing on these 10-10-10 targets that we have in our current global AIDS strategy. That is that less than 10% of countries have discriminatory laws that enable access to people living with HIV to services, that less than 10% of people living with HIV experience stigma and discrimination, and that less than 10% of girls in key populations experience gender inequality and violence. If countries, together with communities, work together to really address these human rights barriers, only then will we be able to work to address the prevention of new infections and ensuring that those that have not been reached for treatment are in fact reached.
The United Nations official spoke about the biomedical advances that gave birth to life-saving medicine and long-acting drugs aimed at preventing new HIV infections. She stressed that the drugs, which are 100% effective in reducing new infections, are not yet affordable by and available in a large number of countries.
The biomedical advances, these innovations that have happened in the HIV response are extraordinary. The interesting thing is that here we are in 2024, and I would say this is almost like the 1996 moment for us, where in 1996 we had antiretroviral treatments, something that was going to save people's lives. Today, now, in this year, we have access to long-acting injectable drugs that can prevent new infections. They are almost 100% effective at reducing new infections. Lenacapavir and other prevention, long-acting prevention modalities that now exist are incredible. It is the 1996 moment for prevention. The problem is that these prevention medications, these innovations, are not yet affordable and they are not yet accessible to all the populations and the subpopulations in countries that need them. So together, UNAIDS, together with countries of the world and private sector, we're really working to make sure that we can drive those costs down so that more and more people who are in need can access those life-saving prevention technologies that now exist. So that is kind of what is in that is the almost amazing, game-changing moment we're in right now, and we have to make sure that we continue to press forward so we can bring this almost miracle medication out to the populations.
World AIDS Day, observed annually on December 1st, put the spotlight on the ongoing fight against HIV/AIDS, urges the world leaders to renew their commitment to ending the epidemic once and for all.
Hello and welcome to Inspiring Figures. Today we'll shed light on an Algerian scientist who has more than 1,000 patents and invention up